Okay, I'll start with a little thought experiment. Let's say you're hiring a senior manager, and I'm giving you their performance review.
All right, I'm ready. I'll play the role of HR. Hit me with the stats.
So get this. This guy, he's been on a single project for 100 years. A literal century.
100 years? Wow. Okay, that's dedication. I'll give him that. Unless he's just incredibly slow. But okay, what was the return on investment? What are the customer acquisition numbers?
That's where it gets a little tricky. In that entire century of work, of outreach, he secured exactly 7 customers.
7.
7. And here's the kicker, the part that makes it an HR nightmare. All 7 of them are his immediate family. He didn't get a single person outside his own household to sign on.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. In any modern company, or really any organization ever, that person is fired immediately. That's a catastrophic failure. 100 years to convert your own kids.
Exactly. It sounds like an absolute disaster. But the source material we're looking at today argues that this exact stat line, 100 years, 7 converts, is actually one of the greatest successes in human history.
It really flips the script on how we measure success, doesn't it? It suggests that maybe our modern metrics, growth, scale, popularity, maybe they aren't the metrics that matter.
It certainly does. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a really fascinating source, a sermon titled Noah's Path, delivered by Pastor Huzi Khan.
And we should set the scene a bit. The source itself notes this was delivered in February of 2026, right in the middle of the Lunar New Year holidays in Taiwan.
Which is a really important piece of context.
It is, because this isn't just a regular sermon. It's happening during a time of, family gatherings, big meals, all that social pressure, that specific kind of holiday exhaustion. So the message is framed as a reflection for a time of rest, but it's dealing with some very heavy stuff.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack how this source interprets a very specific and I think kind of confusing passage in 1 Peter chapter 3 and connects it to the story of Noah.
It's got a dual focus. On one hand, there's this really deep theological symbolism, like what the flood water actually represents, which might surprise you. But on the other, and this is where I think it gets really interesting, it builds this very human psychological profile of Noah's family.
Specifically, the people we never ever talk about.
The daughters-in-law, the forgotten heroes of the story.
That part really got me. It completely changed how I pictured the whole scene. But before we get to the family dynamics, we have to talk about the water. Because reading this, I had to stop and reread it. The source makes a point about the water that felt totally backwards at first.
You're talking about the interpretation of 1 Peter 3, verses 20 and 21.
Yeah. Normally when we think about water in a religious sense, or even just survival, water is life. It cleanses you, it saves you from thirst. We talk about baptism washing away sins. Water is usually the good guy.
Right, it's a cleansing agent. But the source makes it very clear that in the story of Noah, the water is the villain.
How so?
This is the key theological move the pastor makes. He says the water in the flood represents judgment. It represents death. It is the mechanism for burying a corrupt world. The source literally says the flood was a massive global funeral.
So wait, if the water is death, then Noah wasn't saved by the water.
No, he was saved from the water.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is, and the source connects us to baptism, but not in the way most people think. He calls it a typology, a foreshadowing. When the old world was submerged under the water, it died. It was buried.
So when someone is baptized, the act of going under the water isn't just about getting clean.
According to this interpretation, no. It symbolizes death. It's identifying with the death and burial of Jesus. You're acknowledging that the old self is drowning, in a sense.
Wow. That paints a much more intense picture of the ark. If the water is a lethal force, then the ark is so much more than just a big boat.
Exactly. The ark is the picture of salvation. The source is very specific here. Noah and his family were saved through the water because they were safely in the ark. It's physical safety representing a spiritual reality.
Let me try an analogy here. It sounds less like a cruise ship and more like a submarine.
That's a fantastic analogy. Think about it. When you're in a submarine, the deep ocean is hostile. The pressure wants to crush you. The water is lethal. The only thing keeping you alive is being sealed inside a hull strong enough to withstand it. The water is the threat. The submarine is the salvation.
And the source makes that theological leap, saying that for a believer, that submarine That's Christ.
Right. Being in Christ means you're protected from judgment, just like the gopher wood kept Noah's family dry. You're basically floating on top of all the destruction, perfectly safe inside.
Okay, so that's the big theological framework. But I want to go back to that performance review we started with.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the raw numbers, the ones right there in the source, Noah's situation looks incredibly bleak.
It's brutal. The source lays out the timeline. Noah starts building this thing around age 1200. He finishes when he's 600.
100 years. I get frustrated if a kitchen remodel takes more than a month.
Imagine a project that outlives your children. And he's preaching the entire time. The source stresses he wasn't just a carpenter, he was a preacher of righteousness. He was out there talking to people.
And for all that effort, he gets 8 people. Himself, his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their 3 wives. That's the list.
By any modern standard growth, conversions, engagement, it's a terrible report card. The source even says it's very poor results if you're just counting heads.
So why does the source claim God ranks Noah in the highest ranks of faithfulness? Is it just a participation trophy? Like, hey, thanks for trading?
No, it's about the difficulty setting. The source paints this picture. Noah is building a massive boat on a mountain. There's no ocean. There's not even a lake.
Which psychologically, that has to be just draining.
It's more than draining. It's humiliating. The source explicitly says Noah looked like a crazy old dad or a mad father to all his neighbors.
I was trying to picture that. Imagine your neighbor, right? He lives in the middle of Arizona, a desert. And for decades, he spends every weekend in his driveway building a giant submarine.
You wouldn't just ignore him. You'd mock him. You'd take pictures. You'd tell your kids, stay away from that guy. He's lost it.
And the source notes that the society then wasn't just skeptical, it was actively corrupt.
Yes, it pulls from Matthew 24 here. The source calls the society extremely corrupt. People were just eating, drinking, getting married, totally focused on the here and now with no thought for anything spiritual. It was a hostile environment.
So Noah's failure wasn't a marketing problem.
It was a market problem. The market didn't want what he was selling. Pastor Hugh argues that his faithfulness in the face of all that ridicule, sticking to God's plan for a century while the whole world called him a fool, that's what made him a success. He didn't bend to the peer pressure of an entire planet.
That resilience is one thing for Noah. He was the one who heard the voice, who had the vision. But here's where the source really got me, and it's the part I really want to dig into. The pastor shifts the focus away from Noah. He spends a lot of time talking about the 3 daughters-in-law.
This was the big aha moment for me, too. It's such a small detail, you just read right past it. And their wives. But who were they?
Right, we don't even know their names.
Well, just follow the logic of the story. Noah and his wife, they're the first generation. The sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth, they were born into this. The Ark family, they grew up around the construction site. This was their normal.
If their wives?
The source makes a huge point of this. The wives came from the surrounding society.
Oh, wow. I hadn't really put that together until the source laid it out. So they were outsiders.
Total outsiders. These were women from that corrupt generation we were just talking about. They weren't born into faith. They were probably born into families who were making fun of Noah.
Which means at some point, these 3 women had to make an incredibly difficult choice.
A staggering choice. Think of the social pressure. They meet these guys, Shem, Ham, or Japheth. They fall in love. But marrying them means joining the crazy boat family.
It means joining the cult on the hill.
That's how it would have looked to everyone they knew, yes. They had to look at this family that everyone else thought was completely insane and say, yeah, I'm going with them.
And that means leaving their own families behind.
The source really leans into the pain of that. They had to marry into a family with a mad father-in-law. They had to take the ridicule. And ultimately, they had to choose Noah's family over their own parents and siblings.
That is just so heavy. Can you imagine that conversation? Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm getting on the boat with Noah. And her parents are probably screaming, what are you doing? It's sunny outside. There is no rain.
And yet they made the choice. When that door was sealed, they were inside. They defected from their entire world to save their lives.
So what's the theological point the pastor is making with them? Why is this so important?
It's a huge message about what salvation is. The source uses these 3 women to argue that salvation has nothing to do with your bloodline. It's not about your pedigree.
So it doesn't matter if you come from a broken home or a bad background.
Pastor Hugh is very explicit about this. He lists things like a corrupt background, low education, humble birth. He says none of that matters. None of it disqualifies you.
That's a really powerful message of hope.
It is. Because just like those daughters-in-law made a conscious choice to step onto the ark, anyone can choose to enter the family of faith, your original family, your past, your baggage. It doesn't have to define you.
It's a message of agency.
Yeah.
You're not doomed by your starting point. You can choose a new ship.
Precisely. You can be a first-generation believer no matter where you come from.
Now, obviously, most of us listening aren't building a literal boat in our backyard. Or, I hope not.
Hey, if you are, send us photos. We'd love to see the progress.
Please do. But the source really shifts into modern application near the end. And we have to remember the context, Lunar New Year.
Right, the holidays, which for a lot of people can be the most stressful time of the year.
Oh, absolutely. The source mentions people are exhausted from work, and then they walk right into these intense family situations.
So the pastor pivots from the big historical arc to a metaphorical one. He calls it the small arc of the heart.
The inner arc. I like that. What does that actually mean?
He challenges the listener to make their heart a sanctuary. Just like the ark was sealed with pitch, that tar, to keep the deadly water out, the inner ark is a place where you seal yourself off from the world's corruption.
A boundary against what, exactly?
Well, the obvious stuff like politics, work stress, societal pressures. But he also gets really specific about our conversations. Pastor Ho says that when we meet up with people, especially over the holidays, we all follow a script.
Oh, I know that script. How's work? So when you getting married? Been anywhere nice on vacation?
Exactly. It's all on the surface. It's about status and achievement. The source says we should be willing to break that script. If we're building this inner arc, we should be able to share our faith experience, our real inner life, just like Noah was a witness for 100 years.
That is terrifying for a lot of people, though. It's so much easier to talk about the weather.
It is. But Noah didn't just quietly build a boat. He preached. He witnessed. So the challenge isn't just to protect your own inner peace, but to share what's giving you that peace.
The source actually gives the listener 3 specific questions, doesn't it? Like a little spiritual checkup.
It does, and they're really designed to be uncomfortable, to make you think.
Let's run through them. What's the first one?
The first one is, have you witnessed sinful things this week that resemble the days of Noah?
That really forces you to pay attention. It's basically asking, are you even aware of the water rising around you?
Exactly. It pushes back against complacency. The second one hits closer to home for anyone with a strong conviction. In what ways does your faith look crazy or ridiculous to non-believers?
The boat on the mountain question.
It is. It's the litmus test. If you fit in perfectly everywhere you go, if everyone thinks you're completely normal and logical, maybe you're not actually building anything important.
If nothing you do looks a little weird to the outside world, maybe you're not doing it right.
That's the implication. And the third question is a hypothetical. If Noah were here today, what advice would he give on being a godly example in a corrupt world?
I feel like Noah wouldn't be a man of many words. His advice would be pretty short.
I imagine it'd be something like, keep hammering and ignore the neighbors.
And make sure you use enough pitch to seal the wood.
Exactly. It's a really brilliant move, actually, taking this epic world-ending story and making it an intimate guide for how to survive a stressful holiday week.
It connects the macro to the micro. The same principle that saves a family from a global flood can preserve your own sanity and integrity during a tense family dinner. It's about being in that safe structure.
And realizing you can invite other people in, just like the daughters-in-law were invited in.
So as we wrap up, we've gone from the paradox of water as a destructive force to the ark as a place of absolute safety. We looked at Noah, the man who failed by every metric we use today, but succeeded in the only one that mattered.
And we finally gave some credit to those daughters-in-law who had the courage to leave their own culture behind and bet their entire lives on something that looked completely insane.
It's a lot to chew on. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The source just keeps coming back to this idea of a crazy faith. To the outside world, preparation for salvation looks like madness. Noah looked like a fool every single day, right up until the sky opened up.
That's the thing about foresight, isn't it? It always looks like paranoia, right up until the moment it looks like prophecy.
Exactly. So my question for you is this. Is there an area in your life where you are building a boat on a mountain? Is there something you're doing, a discipline, a moral stand, a project that everyone around you thinks is a total waste of time?
Because if there is,
then maybe that feeling of craziness isn't a sign that you're wrong. Maybe, just maybe, it's the proof that you're the only one who's ready for the rain.
That's a powerful way to end it.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.